continuing exposing Fiona Horne's Guide to Coven Magick, L.A. Witch.
You sexy witch. Sexuality is a natural part of life, and it can be used sacredly. Witchcraft may bring even married people to not only engage in perverted behaviors they were repulsed by as a part of sex magic, but to have sex with someone who is not otherwise one they'd even touch. You know, some people believe this about Tantra. Oh, you can only practice the sexual practices with somebody that you're not married to. Yeah, whenever anybody says, oh, you have to have... It's like the Rasputin thing. Salvation through sin with me, yeah. No, I don't know how he said that, but... Some of this was done in ways that left one or more of those involved unable to identify one another. Sometimes this great rite would be witnessed by others. Alexandrian Wicca, this isn't mentioned in the book, by the way, has the sexual rite as its third-degree initiation. Was the founder of that order taken advantage of by his grandmother through that teaching? Are people who want to cast down witchcraft and those who want to take advantage of others making up all this sex magic stuff? From the most ancient paths, we know detail of to Aleister Crowley, sexuality was part of religion or spirituality somehow. Sometimes a witch is not only chaste, like people of revelation-based faiths, but celibate for the sake of what they worship, or to their own goals. Some witches masturbate in the place of prayer and offer it to the universe, or whatever force would fulfill their will. Fiona Horne makes it seem like this may be her most common sexual magic, because she grew up Catholic, and turning from it involved rejecting the sort of praying people in Orthodox religions do. You know, the ground's with us, the heaven's not, so I don't turn towards the heaven, I don't feel like praying because it's better than me, or, that sort of thinking. Is Al-Quran 40:60 right that we should only invoke God in the singular form, is Allah, and those who are too proud to worship God will end up in the hell realms? Questions from the forum. It's the name of the next chapter that I'm saying something about. When I am not too busy in my public and general work, I have time for answering questions and comments from individuals on the issues of religion and spirituality. The first question Fiona Horne responds to here is in addressing the issue of latter problems of organizing for control over others rather than being more authentically upon a spiritual path by not even associating with people a person has a bad feeling about. Yeah, people on their vibes go too far with that. I'm in a bad mood, they're in a bad mood, so they must be a bad person, or no. Studies show that women are more likely to consider themselves psychic and less likely to be such. Bad feelings may have nothing to do with the person, or may have nothing to do with their character. It may end up being one's own mood, or that they are not in their best physical shape. Now, you're seeing how I should be more patient in what I'm speaking about here. That's probably a better angle. People may look for groups to join, but it's probably best to not give out too much personal information and to stay away from people that expect sex, money, or what is repulsive as part of membership. Well, if Satan wants you to offer the blood of a pig or a dog or something, well, if you're looking to get in touch with Satan, I guess that's what you're supposed to be doing. Another question is correctly answered in to not worry about who else is of your path or who else was first. But a person should be free to practice one's spirituality within bounds, or what doesn't intrude on others, even when family you live with doesn't approve. I mean, if you have an altar in your bedroom and that's what you believe in, whatever type of altar that is, a table where you keep your scriptures and your diary, and what's wrong with that? If you don't believe in the path of your family member, you should let them do what they do in secret, at least. Breaking up of groupings should flow naturally and respectfully, but that probably doesn't mean that items that were shared in can't be kept. A book of shadows should only be got rid of or destroyed for reasons of repenting of witchcraft. Al-Quran 36:74 through 75 warns us about how those treated like gods aside from God will really be as an enemy, will really be as an army held against them instead of a help at the end of it all. Do you really want to be left alone without spiritual immunization? Some would like to be solitary most of the time because some organizations rigidly adhere to their own systems. As Al-Quran 39:2 through 3 writes in telling us about the true religion of a system of judgment being only for God, and how those who worship others to be close to God are not being completely honest. Sometimes a person needs to be more solitary. I myself am part of a faith that holds most of the obligations as not something that needs a group. It's just better going to masjid, particularly as a male, to go to pray with the group, and gives, but it's only required once a week. Oh, plus, the Eid prayer or whatever. I myself am part of a faith that holds most of the obligations as not something that needs a group, and gives further allowances to women and the oppressed to practice their faith on their own, or even in secret. And in secrets, means quietly too. Homework. A person may get into witchcraft or some new age group in order to not be religious, but ultimately they all seem to call towards a goal of making spirituality one's whole life, and that relationship with the source that involves community. And sometimes they don't mean the source, they mean, the jinn, not specifically but specifically the shayateen from the jinn. The devils from the fire beings, the fallen angels. Even a sporadic community, even a sporadic spirituality is best when healthy practices of diet, exercise, a lack of intoxicant use, psychological development, and other things are not employed. None of that requires worshiping the sun, the moon, or demons. And, there's some hypocrisy here, minor intoxicants, wine that you like. Either oppose drugs or don't oppose drugs. If diacetyl morphine, heroin, was clean, it would be safer, as it used to be considered safer. Oh, well, I'm doing heroin every day, but 3 times a day, but at least it doesn't have the side effects of drinking. And really, you did used to live longer back before there was other stuff that people put with it. But anyways.
Witchcraft 101.
Many covens have formal education, group learning, sermons, or invented rituals composed. Some elements involved is the shared definitions of witchcraft, how to live the satanic lifestyle by whatever name they call it, their concepts of spirit science or spiritual laws, their mythological history, ritual tools, rituals, types of practices, and their sacred schedule. Althron 39, 149 through 166 speaks of the false claims that the light beings are daughters of God and female when they are worshippers of God, and that the fire beings are God's family. Goes on to mention that whatever people worship is powerless in matters contrary to what God decreed. What then is the truth of mere low magic or spells? And of course, as I say, mere low magic is you kind of whatever spirit wants to take part in this, it comes and it takes part in it. You've opened it up towards that, or you draw your symbols and do your things, and you're like, well, it's going to happen, without even, you're worshiping yourself, you're worshiping the symbol, something's going on there. Reaching out. People are often confused and misinformed about many matters. Be honest and open about what you believe and do. A person doesn't need to have a superiority complex or push it on others. But preaching and other ways of inviting to what you deem orthodox and orthoprax are correct beliefs and correct actions are part and parcel of being a believer in it. Media and art are really forms of preaching. A person can do rites on the behalf of others, but it is better that they do it themselves. and it is within bounds. Fiona Horne is right in that professional worshippers can't guarantee material results, and voluntary work, as such, is more authentic seeming. It should be okay to charge for physical effort of art. You know, if I sell you some art for religious remembrance or whatever, or someone else does, you know. For art and teaching, though. You know, if I was to write a book and sell the book. Witchcraft and Satanism as a whole are both nationally recognized. That means it is often a good idea for ritual leaders of any sort to get certified with the government. Now, that doesn't make them valid spiritually, just like a actual marriage is different than a legal marriage, but The Elements of Me by Tree Johns, a founding member of the
Dark Light of Lilith Coven.
blacks in this country probably have more aversion to witchcraft and such things, even if they are not actual African Americans, or even half-black. Much of this is a result of how Christianity seems to have caught on more firmly among people who are obviously part Negroid. Althron 3936 speaks of how people try to scare people with what they worship instead, but God is enough for his devotees. There are also the concepts of voodoo, hoodoo, witchcraft, and
Satanism.
in general within the media, which may not be true. Be comfortable with your path by having it authentically yours, regardless of popularity. Now, I've noticed more and more how I've studied comparative religion and all this other stuff. The sihr, the evil magic, is very much a part of what goes on in the movies. Now, the physical results don't happen like that, and there's a lot of coincidence going on, but the actual spells and stuff and the perceptions that people have, the movies are getting closer and closer to representing all that. Well, they definitely represent the rituals, but not necessarily the fugue, or whatever you call it, that the spirits give. Living and Loving It by Alison E. Peltier of Temple of Ara. People interested in fiction often want to find out the truth being represented in similar mythology. Alison E. Peltier started the Amaurot Circle, Amaurot. How am I supposed to pronounce that? Which language is it? I can't think of it. With some people after reading about Wicca and practicing it by herself till college. This group still runs and teaches its ways at a Unitarian Universalist center. After trying 2 groups out in New York City, she eventually joined the Temple of Ara and ended up running its newsletter. It is more shamanistic. It's more of a shamanistic cult, but it also is an activist or political organization. Serene by Serena Conneely, Conneely. Serena Conneely considered her identity to be as a witch rather than it merely being a role, but she had trouble being public about it for the first 8 years of holding that self-identification. Shouldn't everyone infuse their identity with their spirituality and be willing to testify to their beliefs? She went on a pilgrimage to Glastonbury, England, the womb of the mother in the Orkneys, and Iona, I forget how you pronounce that, in Scotland. After 8 years, she started going to public rituals during the full moon phase. It took her a while to speak normally in the group. Sometimes a person's presence is enough. Oh, women not talking. Well, do they have to talk? If they're following along with the prayer, they're listening to the sermon, why do they have to speak? It's disruptive for even the men to be speaking up half the time, you know. She eventually connected with a woman named Suzanne, and later her coven. Serene didn't think that she was giving up on being a solo practitioner to join a coven. To her, it was having a dual role and becoming out as what she thinks she always was. Coven Sutra by Dylan Mason of the Witches League of America and the Circle of Saigon. Saigon. It is good if that Dylan Mason never really had the goal to assume spiritual authority before he did, but those of knowledge and ability must certainly be called to rule. Even in 1960s and 1970s California, he felt alone in his interest in magic and ancient mysteries till he was a teenager. He met Cheryl Solyma, his future wife, and her Saigon coven. They became romantically involved, but that didn't mean he would automatically take over when the current high priest left. The men took turns for a while first. Wait, was she the high priest, and were they doing this great rite in the men? I don't know, but that sort of thing's mentioned earlier in the book, so you kind of wonder. The men took turns for a while first. The order was an attempt at Celtic and metaphysical traditions. The 3 degrees, with a year or so between them, a year and a day till the next one, a year and a day, were committing to witchcraft. The Coven of Saigon, and as a part of serving as an elder for both
Satanist
and others. They call it witchcraft, but the word in English, They have a goal to branch out further and further as they grow. The styles per coven vary a little based on who is leading. A leader is supposed to acknowledge individual needs for personalization without feeling like everything needs to please all, or being caught in every interpersonal conflict that arises between them. I disagree with Fiona Horne that all I disagree with Fiona Horne that the main point of a spiritual path is to have fun or experience as desired. But that is certainly something worth learning how to improve. She closes by promoting www.witchbox.com and other websites and books, but I'll leave it up to you to find your own sources for knowing about witchcraft, or should I say
Satanism!